Welcome back, everyone. Today we're making a copycat version of my favorite Little Debbie snacks that no longer exist, oatmeal peanut butter pies. I think that's what they called them. So I'm going to start by making oatmeal cookies without the raisins. This is my oatmeal cookie recipe, literally the same, but without the raisins. 3/4 cup of butter. You should soften the butter, which is I ended up stirring it by myself or by itself in the bowl. Soften the butter if you get the chance. I literally never get the chance. I never find any problem with that. And then this is going to be a low sugar version, so you will be doing 3/4 cup of light brown sugar. I'm going to do 2/4 cup of sucralose and 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm going to make the brown sugar using molasses.
I thought that I was the one you wanted, that's what you said. I thought that we were two of a kind, forging ahead, and now we sit in silence.
So I typically don't measure the molasses when I am making brown sugar, but this was the first time I decided to do it. I did 1 tablespoon, and that I said earlier was 3/4 cup of sugar. And that actually was quite perfect. I think it makes very excellent light brown sugar. You might want a tad more if your recipe specifies dark brown sugar. And then for those of you who are curious, it actually equals out, if you do the conversion, to 1 teaspoon of molasses for every 1/4 cup of sugar you are using. So there is a fun fact for you, how to make perfect brown sugar at home. 1 teaspoon of molasses to every 1/4 cup of your sugar. And I always mix the molasses by hand with the sugar because I find that it more evenly distributes that way. I can squeeze the molasses into every sugar granule rather than stirring. It doesn't work as well when you stir. So there was your perfect light brown sugar. Now this recipe doesn't specify whether the sugar should be light or dark. And I think the only difference would be softness or chewiness. So we're going to be adding the white sugar. The recipe says 1 cup of white sugar. I'm doing 1/2 a cup of regular sugar, refined sugar, cane sugar, whatever you prefer to call it, and 1/2 a cup of sucralose. A friend of mine tried giving me some, well, she didn't try. She succeeded in giving me some Twizzlers. What do you call them? Wasn't Twizzlers. It was licorice. And I said, "Oh no, no more for me. There's too much sugar in it." And she said, "It's white sugar. It's safe." And I was like, "Safe for whom?" I don't know if she didn't realize that white sugar is the bad stuff that you're not supposed to eat, or if she is someone who's like my mother thinks Splenda will give you cancer. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I might lose followers if some of you guys believe that. That is the dough once the butter and sugar has been creamed together. Now we're going to be adding vanilla, and it is 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. That is kind of a lot of vanilla compared to my other recipes. Now this is not a vegan recipe right now because I had eggs to use up, but you can certainly use an egg substitute. There's only going to be 1 egg in this recipe, and this was the worst cracking of an egg that has ever happened. Like I literally poured the egg out of a small hole in the shell. Now we're adding a teaspoon of cinnamon.
Looking eye to eye, we feel our body science, and we can't deny that something's sparking, electric current drawn us near.
2 teaspoons of salt. And my recipe specifies kosher salt, which I know this is. If you've got the finer granules, table salt, you can divide that in half. And then 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda.
Air is charged with expectations, hopes, and fears. So what do we do now? I am betting hopes and dreams aren't as fragile as they seem.
There's what the dough looks like after it's mixed. It's still pretty thick. Nice, good consistency. Now we're going to add in some oats, and you should be using any kind of oatmeal that's not instant. I know my package says rolled oats. The recipe I wrote says rolled oats. There should be 2 cups total, but the package I bought didn't say rolled oats, and I don't remember what it said, like whole grain oats or something like that. It was whatever the Walmart generic is, and it was the 18-ounce package, and it wasn't instant. Maybe you know. But I know I've heard them referred to as steel cut oats before. I've heard them referred to as rolled oats. I think it doesn't matter as long as they're not instant, and I believe the only reason it matters is because the instant oatmeal will kind of dissolve in the batter rather than keeping its shape. You won't be able to tell that you're eating oatmeal. So mix everything up very well.
So I hold on, reaching for what can't be seen, hoping when I can't believe, I will hold on.
Now we're going to add the flour. I'm starting with whole wheat flour because I try to use it when I can in recipes, which is pretty much all the time, unless in this case I run out. So you should be putting in 1 1/4 cups of flour, and I had, we're gonna say, slightly more than 3/4 cups of wheat flour left. So then I threw in some all-purpose flour, and to be honest, I don't notice the difference when I'm baking. I definitely used to, but there was almost as much all-purpose flour as wheat flour in this recipe, and now I just had a cookie for lunch. Well, not for lunch, but in addition to lunch, and I didn't really notice any difference from whenever from that versus when I use all whole wheat flour. So you're going to mix that very well, and then you will have to let the oats sit for a bit. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying so far. This is a pretty fun and delicious recipe, I will say. The reason I wanted to make it was because I haven't had those Little Debbie snacks in a really long time. The oatmeal cream pies went away quite a while ago, and they were always so soft and chewy and sweet, and something about having the peanut butter and jelly was perfect. My recipe says to let the oats sit for an hour, but I only did 20 minutes because lately I've found that that's enough time. The point of that is you need the oats to absorb the oils and liquid and whatever in your recipe, because otherwise the oats come out a little bit too hard and crunchy and gross. So here, dear viewer, is where you can learn from my mistake. I started making these like regular cookies, like my regular oatmeal cookie recipe, and this is where I should have stopped and thought harder about the copycat recipe this is based on, because since I am using sucralose, I did not flatten the cookies enough. You saw me flatten them a bit, but I should have rolled it out like it was a sugar cookie and used a cookie cutter to cut circles out of the dough, because sugar is what helps a cookie spread. And since I had so much fake sugar, the cookie was not going to spread, and they were too tall, really, to resemble the Little Debbie oatmeal peanut butter and jelly pies. So roll your dough out, cut it out with a cookie cutter, and then you will be successful. If you're using full sugar, you don't have to worry about that because these spread pretty well with regular sugar. Now bake the cookies at 350 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes. Here are the finished cookies. Now, you might recall I did attempt this recipe earlier this year, but I made the cookies peanut butter cookies instead of the oatmeal cookies, and that's kind of because I just forgot that's what they were, because I haven't eaten the originals in so long. So we're going to, right now, make some peanut butter frosting. Now we're going to make peanut butter frosting from Sweet and Savory by Shani.com. I ended up quartering this recipe, which was plenty for my cookies. I did a quarter cup of sucralose and a quarter cup of sugar to make powdered sugar in my blender. And then I threw in 4 tablespoons of butter and 1/4 cup of peanut butter into the stand mixer.
I'm a believer that we will find the love we seek, and though we have our heartaches, we will find our way. After night comes daybreak, and with the dawn of day, I am betting hopes and dreams on its back till last they see. So I hold on, hold on.
Then I mixed that well. Then I poured in the powdered sugar half at a time and mixed it. So powdered sugar and brown sugar are 2 things that I don't keep in the kitchen anymore because I can make it pretty easily. And so can you. Here's what it looks like so far when the sugar, butter, and peanut butter are mixed in together. Now we're going to add some vanilla extract. Never mind, now we're going to add the rest of the sugar. Then vanilla extract, that's 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, I'm quartering the recipe, so this, oh, and then I did a tiny little bit of salt because her original recipe said 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I didn't want to worry about a 1/16 of a teaspoon of salt. So, like I said, the quantity was perfect for these cookies. I think the original recipe would be enough for a batch of cupcakes. So I definitely recommend this peanut butter frosting recipe. I thought it was good and it didn't include a whole bunch of random stuff. Sometimes when I look up frosting recipes, they include cream cheese, which I don't really keep in the house because of the cholesterol, and a lot of other stuff that just makes it too complicated. I took the liberty of taste testing the frosting and it was perfect. Now we are in the home stretch. Thank you for keeping with me this far. Here are 2 very tall oatmeal cookies. I could barely get my mouth around them. They were too much. So yes, roll out the dough, cookie cutter it. You'll thank me later. So here is one side that's peanut butter, and then when I was doing this, I kind of forgot that when I was eating the Little Debbie oatmeal PB&J pies, they used to spread the jam and the peanut butter, and the jam was grape, by the way, which would have been a better option, but this is my homemade strawberry jam. I'll link that recipe to you as well. So they made it kind of in a what I call the BMW pattern. So the way the peanut butter and jelly is laid out, it's not sandwiched on each other. It's in little quarters on this cookie, and it was actually really good. I did refrigerate these cookies because I was concerned about the frosting kind of melting everywhere in the pantry. So you can see how tall the cookies are. You definitely want to flatten them if you're looking for the real Copycat experience. And again, this is a low sugar recipe, so it's not going to taste exactly the same, but it does taste pretty darn good, and I really hope you enjoy it like I am. Happy eating!